I joined the Navy in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and came to San Diego for our boot camp. And this was just the beginning of integration. So I qualified to go to an A school in Jacksonville, Florida, in electronics. I was looking last night in my photos, and I saw I had my boot camp picture with all the guys in there, and there were, I don't know how many in the company, quite a few, but there were like 4 blacks in the group. Yeah. I really had no expectations of ever becoming an officer in the Navy. That was like something that was not reachable for people like myself. I think the first time I saw a black naval officer, I was stationed Quonset Point, Rhode Island, and I was in a utility squadron towing targets for the ships at sea. And they had us all living in what they call the Stewart's Barracks. All the blacks had to live in Stewart's Barracks. And it didn't make any difference which squadron you were in. If you were black, you lived in Stewart's. At that time, 90% of the people in the Navy black people in the Navy were Stewarts. And it was just by being informed when I enlisted in the Navy as to how I could avoid becoming a steward, because I had friends classmates who had already joined the Navy, and they told me what to do and to take an examination, stuff like that, to qualify for the schools. And anyway, I was at Quonset Point, Rhode Island, about I think I was about 19 years old, and living in the Stewart's Barracks, working on the aircraft in the hangar. And I was told that there was a black naval officer at the BOQ. And that was really strange. And so that evening, he came over to the steward's quarters where we were staying, and introduced himself. He was I think he was an ensign, and he was a naval aviator. And we talked, and he was telling us how we should try to become a pilot or something. And I decided I didn't want to be a pilot. Well, one of the guys in the barracks, he did decide to become a pilot. He did become a pilot. The pilot that I met that night, I think his name was Jesse Brown, and he was killed in Korea, the first black naval aviator to die in combat, flying F-4U Cutlass aircraft, and he was shot down. And they tried to rescue him, but they were unable because the North Koreans were moving into the field where he crashed, and so his wingman, a lieutenant commander, had to leave the area. And when they came back the next day, they spotted his body out of the aircrafts and staked down to the ground, and it was determined that he was no longer alive. So that was the first black officer I saw. I deployed on the Midway. This is the first ship I sailed on, a combat type ship. I had once been on a cargo ship to go to Puerto Rico when I was stationed in Puerto Rico as an enlisted person. I was in charge of the radar in the aircraft. It was an all-weather intercept squadron. It had this, at that time, sophisticated intercept radar where the pilot um, could look at the screen and get a target, and he could maneuver his aircraft to get the target into the crosshairs, and then push a button and it would automatically take over the automatic pilot and fly the aircraft, and within 2,000 feet or something like that, it would launch its missiles, and it would all be controlled by the radar and not by the pilot, and then it would take evasive action. We had 12 aircraft, and after deployment, after we finished our carrier quals, we came back and to Jacksonville, and then made preparations to deploy to the Mediterranean. And we went to the Med on board the Midway. I'd never been to Europe, and I'd never been that far away, and I just had to see it. And we were pulling into Gibraltar the next morning, and I got up real early in the morning because I wanted to see Europe, and all I could see was just the lights out there because it was still early in the morning. But we stayed in the Mediterranean for 6 months, and we were supposed to return to Norfolk, but we weren't able to do so. I had a division officer, and he was an LSO, landing signals officer, back there waving his flags, and he was kind of skittish about flying. He was a lieutenant, and one day he came in high and hit the deck, bounced up in the air, tried to gain altitude, fell forward into the pack, and wiped out 3 of our aircraft, killed 3 of our people, including himself. We had 12 aircraft, and we came back with 6. And there were like 4 or 5 squadrons on the ship. We had all kinds of accidents on the ship because it was a straight deck ship. I don't know if you know what that means. It's like this. It didn't have an angle on it. From the squadron that I was in, VF-31, I went to Memphis, Tennessee to teach school. I taught advanced electronics to first class and chief petty officers. My division officer was Lieutenant Commander Gay, and he suggested, I had made chief by then, and he suggested that I should put in for to become an LDO. I applied for that program. I did everything. I passed everything but the physical. I didn't weigh enough. I only weighed about 132 pounds. And that was about as much as I weighed when I finished high school. And I only weighed 135 when I retired from the Navy. So I was not a large person. I ate as much as I could, and I passed the physical. And it was just really kind of like cold water. I mean, all of a sudden the list came out from BUPERS, and my name was on the list, and I just couldn't believe it.